And hello to many of the judges and our members out there. Good morning, and as we always do, show your cup of coffee. Yay! I like that R1. We are here and joined today by two judges, two women judges, so timely during this season where we are contemplating the nomination and possibly the approval of Amy Coney Barrett for the U.S. Supreme Court Justice. And who we have with us is from the District Court 31, Joanna Kishner. Joanna, say hi to everyone, just wave. Hi. And then with us also from the Family Court Judge G is Rhonda Forsberg. So we've never done two, well, we did do two at a time at one of our sessions. So we're gonna first with, let's go with Judge Joanna Kishner. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your race?
Sure. Well, for many of your club members, they've known either myself or my family. My father, Erwin Kishner, has been here since the 1950s. And so my family, I was born and raised here in our great Clark County community. And for me, I've done public service, community service since I was a kid. After graduating from Clark High School, I went on to Claremont McKenna College, and I double majored there in political science and psychology. And Pauline, you'd mentioned you actually have a connection there with your son going to Pomona, one of the other Claremont campuses. And so after I worked, when I was a double major, one of the reasons I wanted to work with autistic children, but I also knew I wanted to go into law, so I was able to get both political science and psychology. I then went on to UCLA Law School, and I've licensed both in California and Nevada because I wanted to have the breadth and depth of experience. I've worked both at international law firms as well as in-house, and after 21 years, including being a judge pro tem, judge pro tem, small claims referee, traffic referee, arbitrator, and doing a lot of pro bono work and working for international firms, as I mentioned. I then was elected to the bench in 2010, and for the last approximately 10 years, I've been the only judge in Department 31 because it was created in 2010. And my docket is a civil docket with overflow criminal, and I also have a specialty docket in complex construction defect litigation. And while on the bench, I'm very active in Access to Justice, Legal Aid of Southern Nevada's Pro Bono Advisory Council, Boyd Law School's Public Interest Law Foundation Executive Board, Law Library. I'm a trustee on the Law Library Board because for me, it's a combination of my legal work plus continuing with all my community work.
That's wonderful. You're a native Nevadan then.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You can even ask me to recite the Home Means Nevada song that we learned back when we were in elementary school, which your kids did as well.
Are you a good singer?
I am not, which is why I said I would recite, not sing.
Okay, so we won't do that. Okay. Thanks, Judge Kishner. Judge Rhonda.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much to Nevada Republican Club for having me this morning to speak, and especially Pauline for all your efforts that you put out on our behalf. We appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's here today. I see a lot of really friendly faces that I know really well. I'm grateful for all of them here. I'm Rhonda Forsberg. I'm the current judge of Family Court Department G. I was appointed in April 2019 to the bench, so I've been serving a little over a year. Prior to serving as Family Court Department G, I was a pro tem hearing master for both discovery and for domestic violence court. So I did that prior. I've primarily, since I practice law, I've primarily only done family law. That's where my heart is, because in all fairness, though there's big complex litigation, there's nothing more important to most people than their families. So that's where my heart is. I got my undergraduate degree from the University of Utah. I am a non-traditional student. I took a long time to get my bachelor's degree because I raised a family, 2 children, and I went to school full time. It took me 15 years to get a bachelor's degree. So for those that are still plugging along, don't give up. You can do it any way, even the slower way, because no matter what, you're going to be that age when you're done. Whether it's going to be in 4 years, you're going to do the fast track, or whether you're going to take 15 years, you're still going to be that same age that you're going to be. So I encourage everybody to do it the non-traditional way. Prior to going to law school, I was in the insurance industry. I co-owned a Levitt Insurance Agency in Salt Lake. They have a partnership system up there with the Levitt Group. So I gave up that to go back to school, gave up an insurance agency. And then when I came down here to go to law school, I was really grateful that Boyd had a nighttime program so I can continue to work to support my family. And the Levitt Group gave me a job back here to work with them while I got my degree. And everybody thought I would go into personal injury because I did insurance, but I sure fooled them. I went to where my heart was, and I've done that since 2005. So I am, again, you said about my race and about my opponent a little was your other question. I don't know much about him. He doesn't really practice family law, so I won't say much about him other than that. So again, I'm Rhonda Forsberg, Department G. Thank you.
Thanks, Judge Rhonda. And for clarification, people have asked about your opponent, whether your opponent's name is Benjamin Childs. Now, apparently there's another Ben Childs who's with the Clark County School District and who's a registered Republican. That is not him, correct? Because this Benjamin Childs is a grandfather.
I don't know that to be true or not, Pauline, to be honest, because the one thing I am allowed to say is that he did file, his case was before me, his personal case. The only thing I'm allowed to say is I had to recuse from that case. So I know nothing really about him. He hasn't been out on the trail. I assume it's not. If you're telling me it's not, I really, truly don't know.
Well, I can actually say that because I see the pictures. I get for our members who are from the Nevada Republican Club and who are registered Republican. This is not the Ben Childs who has been who has been the center of controversy over at Clark County School District. This is another Benjamin Childs. So just to clarify for everyone on this YouTube channel, I'm sorry, who will be on the YouTube channel on this Zoom. Okay, a couple of things. Let's talk about Judge Joanna. You've been on the bench for 10 years. That's a significant amount of time. What have you learned in the last 10 years as a judge? What are the things that you would change, and what are the things that you would keep the same upon re-election?
Okay. Well, one of the things that I would change is one of the changes we're going through actually right now. Coming from private practice and doing a lot of work around the world, the country and the world, is really had a lot more resources to technology. As in the courts, is we weren't having as much technology. Now I will put the only silver lining I can really put on the current situation is it's forced us to have more technology advances. For example, now for attorneys, they can submit their orders electronically. We can review them and get them back to them very efficiently. You have a lot of attorneys I see on this call, and hopefully that's been a positive. They can put a thumbs up if they like it, put a thumbs down if they don't like it. I think you'll probably get thumbs up on that one. So that technology advance, the fact that we are able to give better access to justice by having remote appearances more. Now, we've already done remote appearances in Department 31. In fact, we've had people with a translator when they've been out of country in a trial, but we're able to do that more. And so that gives more access to justice, not only for the litigants and their attorneys, but also for the public. Realistically, any member of the public could ask to listen into most hearings. There's a few on the family court side, and Judge Forsberg could talk about that, but can listen to most hearings, watch many hearings, and learn more about what's going on in the judicial system. So that's a change I would make and continue to make, so we get more advanced there to allow both better access to justice and just more efficient for people's time. One of the things that I have learned on being on the bench is really how much you can learn on a daily basis. I had already practiced law for over 2 decades before coming to the bench, had a practice in general civil, focused labor and employment, had done a lot of pro bono cases, abused and neglected children through the CAP program of legal aid. But now I get every type of case before me, and it's really so interesting, whether it's public records case, whether it's First Amendment cases, we get contract cases. So there's really a wide breadth and depth of cases that we get, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about being a judge is you get all these unique cases, you get to see all the people litigate their cases, and you really get to resolve things and get things done.
Well, I think you've been endorsed by every major law enforcement group. And I think it's really telling that you are getting endorsements from both sides of the aisle. So you're doing obviously a really good job. And people see you as fair, and you've received numerous awards for your pro bono work and your work with legal aid. Which one of those awards is the most special to you?
Realistically, as much as I've got some beautiful awards that have been presented to me, it's the stories behind those that I really like the most. The fact that we were implementing, in fact, October 1, we're starting a whole revamped program with our front of the line pass. I worked with legal aid to try and encourage attorneys to take on more pro bono. That's volunteering their services for a variety of different cases, whether it's family court, probate, civil. It's not as much in the criminal because they get a right to counsel for certain cases. And when we created this front of the line pass so that attorneys, if they took on a pro bono case or had any outstanding pro bono case, they could go first. And instead of waiting a half hour or whatever it may be to have their case heard, that was encouraging people to take on those cases. And that's something we're really proud of because we showed significant increase in individuals taking on cases throughout the whole month of October. We're encouraging it now. I mentioned technology. Since people don't physically come to court in most cases, we're now doing it electronically so people can get first on the audio visual appearances. And that's something, putting that and helping with the Access to Justice survey to see where our legal needs are, is we can actually implement and target different things so that everyone has a full and fair opportunity to be heard in court.
I'm glad you're doing that because, you know, you have a lot of pro se litigants out there who just don't have the ability to hire an attorney, or they just haven't had the chance to do so. So I really appreciate that. Any chance that you'll try to get on the business court?
Well, my complex construction defect docket really is kind of similar to business court. It's business cases. It's just focused under what's Chapter 40, which is residential construction defect. So I can have up to 40, sometimes at actually one of our cases, we were going to have 60 lawyers try a case that was supposed to go for about 2 years. So the nice thing about that is I get to do all of the complex aspects, but focused in a targeted area. Those individuals who are doing business court, I know they really enjoy their docket. If I was asked to add on that docket, I'd be glad to do so. I'm really glad to do any docket that I get asked to do.
Thanks, Judge Joanna. I could tell that you're really a team player, and I really appreciate your being a judge in complex construction cases because they involve so many parties. Going back to Judge Rhonda. Judge Rhonda, you were elected, or were you appointed in 2019? I mean, you've had judicial experience.
I was appointed, Pauline, in 2019 from a field of 11 attorneys. 11 people sought the job, and I was the one who was honored and blessed to have obtained it.
And you've been endorsed by the Review Journal.
I have, and the Sun, and all the police and fire, and those as well.
And of all of those endorsements, which one is the most special to you, Judge Rhonda?
You know, I think they're all there. I'm honored by all of them, partly because it's the community. It's not just one group. Like your group does so much, right? And then, you know, all the first responders, all that they're doing, you know, I mean, they put their lives on the line. So I have, with being fire and police and not just one or the other, I can't really say that I could pick just one because they're all amazing. You know, each one does something different. You know, I've been surprised and overwhelmingly honored by the overwhelming support I've gotten, which has been very, you know, humbling. So I can't really say that there would be one, but probably all the first responders, those people are on the line every day.
Well, I appreciate that. Definitely the first responders for me is very telling. We talk a little bit about Judge Joanna does a lot of work with legal aid and pro bono. What do you do in your spare time, if you have spare time?
I don't really have any right now. I did a lot of with legal aid as well. I did a lot of CAP cases. And in fact, honestly, to be honest, I think part of my service with legal aid is why I was chosen from the 11 attorneys, because I did a lot of that. In addition to that, I did, I was court-appointed counsel for abuse and neglect cases, for dependency cases. And I specifically sought out that position in addition to having my own practice to do that, to help people to give back to the community, because those are the people who aren't represented, you know, that they're the ones that are in the most horrible, trying times of their lives. And I think something that Judge Joanna talked about was that, we talk about, she mentioned the word access to justice, but I don't know that everybody here understands that as far as the unrepresented or self-represented litigants, family court is where the majority, the bigger, vast majority are compared to civil and criminal court. Because in criminal, they are given counsel if they can afford it. And then in civil, if they're big cases, depending on where they're going. But we have about approximately 67% of litigants before me are not represented. So I think that's where my service always was there. I always did a lot of pro bono stuff and a lot of ask the lawyer. I also served on the Settlement Masters program where I tried to help resolve cases for judges in all the departments, even prior before I got on the bench. I still do that now. They finally implemented that ask one, and you get one case and you do one settlement for another judge. They finally instituted that last year in the civil criminal. They've been doing that with family for a while. So I do a lot of that. I previously used to volunteer for Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, helping kids that are on the street to try to help them get the stuff that they need. Mm-hmm. That organization provides showers and beds, and some beds, they don't have very many, but to help the youth. So I'm involved in that as well. I do a lot of events like the child find search that just happened. I went out with that just right before COVID hit. I went out and did that. I mean, I'm involved in a lot of that kind of stuff as well.
So what is, I understand, Judge Rhonda, that you were a hearing master or a pro tem hearing master before you became a judge. Is that the same with you, Judge Joanna? Were you a hearing master prior to being elected to the district court position?
On the civil criminal side, is a little different than the hearing masters. What I did is through justice court, I was a small claims referee and a traffic referee. Those are for low cases, low value cases. At the time it was 5,000, so it's now 7,500. And I was also a judge pro tem in justice court. So those, and I also was an arbitrator through our 8th judicial program. And the arbitrator is an alternative dispute mechanism where cases that are less, at the time it was 50,000, it's now gone up, would handle those cases, and then went all the way full. Instead of having a trial, you actually had an arbitration decision, and that arbitration decision was then appealable to the short trial program and or district court. So that's a little different than what Judge Rhonda did as a hearing master, because she held a specific docket for certain types of cases. For me, I was doing any type of the civil cases that were assigned to me.
So based on your experience when you were an arbitrator, how has that informed you in terms of the kind of judge you are now?
Well, I really enjoy alternative dispute resolution and getting things resolved, I mentioned a moment ago. And when I was an arbitrator, what I was able to do is I was able to take my breadth and depth of experience as a litigator and do a semi-judicial role even before I was elected. Because we would take the cases from start to finish. We would oversee the discovery. That's when people ask, the questions, or take the depositions of the parties, and then go all the way to, instead of it going inside a courtroom, it would be in our conference room, and I would be the decision maker, and there wouldn't be a jury, but it was very similar to a bench trial. So that gave me all of that experience of how to have the demeanor, doing some more of the research, having the resolution, the neutral fact finder role, which I think really has helped me as a judge. Also, I've continued on that because part of what we do, Judge Rhonda mentioned settlement conferences. We do that on the civil criminal division as well. We volunteer for settlement conferences for other judges. And I do that a lot, and I've done that a lot and have enjoyed doing that. In fact, because of the fact that I do it so much, I wanted to even advance and enhance my skills. So I even got my mediator certificate at the National Judicial College.
Well, that's awesome. And I really appreciate you saying that, because having that experience really does help improve your performance as a district court judge. Now, Judge Rhonda, you were a hearing master, and how did that help you become a family court judge?
Well, doing it for both domestic violence and discovery court. A lot of those parties, especially in domestic violence, are represented by themselves. A lot of majority of the litigants that come before for a TPO, that's a court where they're asking for a temporary protective order. And so it's handling when there's been domestic violence in a family type or relational setting. So with that, it actually helped because I dealt with so many self-represented litigants. And since I have almost 70% of the people before me are self-represented, it helped me hone the skills of listening to them and being patient with them because they're not represented. They don't know what they're doing. It's scary for them to be before a judge or anybody in a robe. And in that case, it was a hearing master for that particular department. So I think it helped me with those skills, to hone those skills before I took the bench. And as far as the discovery, being over discovery, that helped me dealing with attorneys because that's more where you have attorneys representing you. So it's keeping them in line a little because, you know, they are passionate about their clients as well. And I appreciate that, but it helped me with all of that. It helped me to be able to deal with the everyday stuff and the parties that are before you on the bench.
Who are your non-judge heroes?
Definitely, actually one of my non-judge heroes, it was a former employer of mine who was a volunteer in Utah. I worked for him in the insurance industry before I went to work for the Levitt Group, and he volunteered as a police chaplain for the West Valley City, and he went on so many calls where there was deaths and stuff like that. My hero is him because he donated his time so selflessly, even though he had 5 children. He and he ran a insurance agency. So I would say he would be one that would be a non-judge hero because, you know, watching him go I don't know if people remember there was those children that died in the back of a car where they were locked that actually caused that change, the trunk to change where you now have a fluorescent thing that you can get out of your trunk with. That was created because one of the cases in which he went on, he was the one who he's the one who found those children with the police and had to tell those poor families. So my heart was with him as far as a hero because he would handle the most horrible things as a citizen to volunteer to do that, just to help families through that process. So he'd probably be one of my heroes besides my parents. I mean, I know everybody says their parents because, you know, but clearly he would be one of them.
That's amazing. And I'm glad that they have now the flip underneath the hood. Not the hood, but
in the trunk. It's in the trunk.
Yes,
It's now
they can
fluorescent where you see
where
it.
they are.
Mm-hmm. That was created after that.
Oh, that's interesting. And very necessary and helpful. Definitely a safety technique that's now used. Judge Joanna, who is your non-judicial hero?
Well, I do have to say my father, Erwin Kishner. Not only did he help raise my sister and myself, but he instilled with us such a sense of community. Not only was he doing it, he was on the convention authority. He was one of the founders of what was called PBS at the time. He one of the people who helped start the Boys Club here in Clark County. He also was with so many different groups with Rotary. He was president of his Rotary. He was one of the people who, I mean, we were out there on the Saturdays helping dig up and remodel parks and going to different parts of the community as a young child. And those instilling that as well as him being a business person. I remember we were out to dinner one time with my father, and he got a call and we had to stop everything because he was a landlord and a small business owner. And one of his tenants' sons had been put in jail and the person had no idea what to do. So we went back to the house and he went to the jail to go bail the person out. It's those type of lessons, is the active doing everything that you need to do for the community, in addition to his volunteerism, that really made him my hero. We lost him 3 years ago, and many, I think probably your members knew him and knew a lot of the work that he did. And so he really is a hero to me because of how he helped form my impressions, but also helped so many other people in the community that were less fortunate.
Well, I regret that we never got your father, Ira Kishner, on one of these Zoom calls. And by the way, we apologize. On our slate card, we had you as Joanna Kishner as opposed to Kishner. And we apologize for the misspelling. You know, we had 5 sets of eyes on the card and it escaped all of us. So we apologize if we spelled your name wrong, but it's Judge Joanna Kishner. So,
No worries, people do it all the time. I always say wish dish fish kish, makes it easy.
oh, there you go. Fish dish kish.
Wish dish fish kish.
So we are living in some very interesting times. We have a woman being nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court, and her name is Amy Coney Barrett. Have you had a chance to read up about Amy Coney Barrett? And this question is for both of you. And what is it about her that interests you? If you've had a chance to read anything, any kind of media, anything about her.
I've certainly heard a little bit about her. I did see a few articles on her on Facebook the other day. I haven't delved further into it. I know she's been what I believe it was 2017. She was appointed to the circuit bench. I mean, those are the things I picked up on so far, but I haven't had a chance to do the deep dive that I plan to do in the next week. But I do know she's only been on that bench, I think, since 2017. That was something that jumped out at me. I don't know why it did. It just, when you read something like, oh, it tells me a lot that perhaps she has a lot to her. I don't know, but for her to have reached this pinnacle in such a short time from being on that bench, that's pretty amazing. I thought that was, wow. If that's the number, I believe it was 2017. That's only 3 years. That's pretty amazing to have reached the entire national view. That was the only thing I've read so far on her.
How about you, Judge Joanna? Have you had a chance to read any of the articles or listen to any of the media about Amy Coney Barrett?
I have in part, and I'm going to have to couch, I can tell you factual information. I'm sure you can appreciate I'm not a judicial activist, and I can't get into policy issues as a sitting judge. And so with all respect to that, yes, I have read about her with some of her teachings that she taught over at Notre Dame, that she is balancing the workload issues as well as raising family. I believe 5 children. I may be off on that,
Yes,
but I believe she has
7.
Okay, 7. So I knew it was a multiple, and it was more than 2 arms that you can hold at the same time with both parents. So, but having multiple children, and her, as Rhonda said, her meteoric rise going from teaching at Notre Dame, then to going on to the appellate bench and now being considered for the highest court, is strides for women. You figure we're celebrating this year 100 years since the 19th Amendment came into play. So the advances have really been tremendous. And as far as, I can't go into any policies, as I mentioned, just because as a sitting judge, I'm not an activist, and I leave policy decisions to the legislature or a different branch of government.
Well, I'll tell you what struck me was that she graduated #1 from Notre Dame Law School. And like our kids, Judge Joanna, she went to a liberal arts college, Rhodes College, which struck me as being very interesting. And she talks at various points about who her heroes are and who her non-judicial heroes are. So tonight's an interesting night. We're going to go a little bit into politics, and I'm not going to ask you who you want to vote for. That's not the issue here. The question is, we have our first debate between President Donald Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden tonight. Do you think you'll be watching that debate? And if so, what are the issues? I'm only asking about the issues, not specifically about how you feel about them. What issues do you look forward to hearing from tonight's debate?
I can start with that. I look forward to hearing about the economic issues. Moving forward, I think that's going to be important for our country coming out of, when we come out of a pandemic. So I'm clearly going to be looking for that information for me.
I would echo what Judge Rhonda said, is I would be looking for actual substantive answers and a plan or a program to assist the country, not only economically, but to ensure our world safety as well, would be some of the things that I would be looking to.
Well, and to counter with that too, is I think that nobody expected this to happen. Everybody's, with the pandemic, everybody's kind of flying by the seat of their pants on this. Everybody's trying to do the best they can. And so it'll be interesting to see if there's a differing plan for us to come out of this pandemic.
Judge Joanna?
That's what I was saying, is that's why I would be looking both to the economic aspect. I mean, what's going to be the impact, the game plan for not only small business owners, but for individuals to ensure that not only ourselves, but our future generations, what's going to be the game plan to assist in that. And as I also mentioned with regards to the world safety, not only our health safety, what's going to be the game plan there, but also there's a lot of issues going on around the world, and to have an understanding of what is going to be the foreign policy of each of the individuals is going to be interesting to hear, and what's their game plan to where we're going to move forward on the international front as well.
Well, COVID has certainly made things difficult, or rather challenging. On the other hand, I think COVID has also made us more creative. For example, we're doing these Zoom calls, which we never had Zoom calls before. And they're very convenient. They're really easy to get on. But at the same time, it's also called a backlog in cases in family and district court. Judge Rhonda, how has the family court docket changed? And do you think that you can ever catch up with all the cases that are backlogged?
Well, I took the bench, and my cases were backlogged anyways, because when there's a delay between judges, and if you had a judge that wasn't doing trials because they didn't want to start a trial and then not be able to finish a trial. So I had a backlog to begin with, so I'm used to backlogs. Fortunately, the senior judges had double stacked me to try to get me through that process, and double stacking means I'll have a stack 1 and a stack 2 on trial every single day. In addition to even if I had a trial in the afternoon, I had a morning calendar. So to get through the backlog, that's what's going to happen. We have had an increased number, I believe, but in addition, but the good thing for us, the slight help that's going to happen is we're getting 6 new family court judges, 6 new departments. However, 3 of them are replacing hearing masters that do dependency, juvenile dependency. So really, we're only getting a real increase of 3. So of shrinking our caseload. So with that, that's going to help. But I think that's the way we're going to have to do it. We're just going to have to double stack. And the hope when you double stack is that if one gets resolved, then you go forward on the next one. So you're not just losing that time. So fortunately, for the last year, I finally was about February, I finally was not double stacking on every day and making sure, because I don't have a lot of judges have a chambers day. I give mine up every, you're supposed to have a chambers day to do all your orders, but I don't have one because I've been trying to do that. Because right now, I think my caseload is just under 900. It's 890 right now. I think it was yesterday. So we're going to have it, and it's increasing, but it's going to get better with the new judges.
Well, that's good to hear. I have to say, having been in practice for 16, 17 years myself, I can't imagine handling that many cases. Do you think that the number of abuse and neglect cases is rising because of COVID?
Well, you know what's interesting? Because the main reporters for abuse and neglect were who? The teachers. So I think the delay is coming. I think it's coming because of the stress in the families, but the delay, the main reporters have been the teachers, and kids aren't in the schools. So I think that area has probably gone down, where other things like domestic violence has gone up, and divorce has gone up, because a lot of times people were locked in rooms with their spouses that maybe they liked them half a day and not a whole day whenever everybody was originally quarantined. So I think the dependency is going down right now only because of reporting. I don't think it's happening less. I think it's probably happening more. It's just the reporting's going down. So that's why I would say that would be the case.
Wow, that's really scary.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you don't have teachers reporting abuse and neglect. That could be worse. Judge Joanna, are you experiencing a backload of cases? And is the 8th Judicial District in general going to find a way to expedite its disposition of these cases?
Sure. Okay, so a 2-pronged answer. Department 31, we're very fortunate. When I first got my first initial docket, it was 1,975 cases were assigned to me. I am down to now less than 700. I've had a clearance rate every year over 100%, usually around 120% or more. And what that means is for every new case coming in, I'm getting more cases that have been resolved, tried, etc. I've done trials. The statistics we receive from the court is, I think, over 250 jury and bench trials, and those aren't single day cases. And so I'm very fortunate. I do not have any what's called 5-year cases, which are cases that have been in the system for 5 years and are about to be dismissed if they're not tried in Department 31. I also don't have any 3-year medical malpractice cases. I have one of the largest. You can agree to take on medical malpractices, and if you have a complex docket, you don't have to, but I do. I enjoy doing all sorts of complex, interesting litigation. So I do not have any of those without a specific waiver of both parties. So the Department 31 is not in a situation that any case, because of these couple of months that we've not been trying cases actively in the RJC, we don't have any issues in either of those areas. Instead, what we've done is lots of motions. It's one of the reasons I keep volunteering more and more for settlement conferences to try and resolve other people's cases and try and get other judges to volunteer for settlement conferences to try and resolve the cases in Department 31. So we actually have a trial. I have a bench trial scheduled in November, one of my construction defects, another trial scheduled in November. And actually we do have a trial scheduled in October currently, unless the parties change their mind. So we're starting to go back to doing some trials. Those are bench trials. Jury trials in the RJC on the civil side do have to take behind criminal trials because of the constitutional rights for people who've invoked or people that are multi-state, et cetera. So we're looking to do civil jury trials. In fact, civil jury trial is supposed to be going forward in the convention center unless that's been changed next month as well. And so department-wise, we're doing fine. There's been a large increase of filings. I understand I got about 50 new cases in about the last 30, 35 days, which is a very large number. I'm getting one day I got 6 new cases. We get randomly assigned cases. But we're handling those. We're handling them at the front end and having the attorneys appear remotely and try and get them on a game plan so that we don't get backlogged on the back end. Anybody wishes to go to trial, wishes a bench trial, we're ready to go. Jury trials, we're starting to find a game plan. Overall, the 8th Judicial District has tried to be very creative by modifying the courtroom down on the 3rd floor. And they've already had 1 bench criminal trial and 1 jury trial, criminal side, using the convention center for a large complex business court case that Judge Gonzalez oversaw. So they're trying to be creative in all those different ways, but balancing the safety to ensure anybody who's here on jury duty, all the litigants, all the attorneys are safe as well.
Well, that has to be interesting to have a jury trial over at the convention center. Has that already started? Has Judge Gonzalez, and this is Betsy Gonzalez, already started on that jury trial?
Excuse me, that was, sorry, I misspoke. That was a bench trial at the convention center. It was a multi-party. It was involving marijuana licenses. You may have read about it in the newspaper. That's already started and concluded, and that had multiple attorneys, but that actually was a bench trial. The jury trial that took place was on the criminal side. It was handled by Judge Delaney last week, and from what I understand, it went pretty well. They dealt with a lot of different people and maintained the safety and have a whole bunch of the procedures in place to keep everything clean, new filters, all sorts of things going on, plastic, different walls, all sorts of things.
Okay, just for fun, let's put all the judicial stuff aside. What kind of food do you like? Cuisine.
Ooh. Well, okay, I'm a foodie. I admit it. I'm a true foodie. So last night it was Thai pin cow because so busy, didn't have a chance to do stuff. I do Indian, I do Indonesian, you name it. I enjoy it, and I try and support a lot of our small businesses now because they haven't had any people. We normally do pickup. We don't usually eat inside, but we'll do pickup. But you name it, I probably eat it.
I'm
Right.
a little more,
Which is why you're only seeing part of me. Go ahead.
I'm a little more picky probably. There's some things I don't eat. I'm not, my favorite, I don't know, I'm torn between 2 things. My favorite is between Italian and Mexican food. Those are my very favorite. I grew up in California, a lot of really good Mexican food down there. So I certainly That's my favorite. I like Thai as well, but yeah. But I agree with Joanna. We eat out all the time as well. We don't, you know, we're a little more cautious about going in, but we certainly want to support the industry, you know, to do a lot of takeout. So.
Great. Thank you for both of you for being on our Zoom call. I'll be sure to catch you either at a Mexican restaurant, Judge Rhonda, or at a Thai restaurant, Judge Joanna. That's kind of good to know. It's a little tidbit that we get to know about you. I wanted to remind all of everyone who's on the call that normally we are having our lunches on first Tuesday. However, because of the various schisms that are happening in the health department schedules, we are meeting on Wednesday, October 7th at Ahern Hotel and Convention Center. October 6th, we will have our Zoom call on October 6th, and we'll be advertising on Facebook as well as on MailChimp. Want to remind everyone that if you didn't catch all of today's Zoom, that you can find it on the Nevada Republican Club YouTube channel, where we will be uploading all of these videos for the candidates' use as well as for our members' use. Also want to remind you, we are going to have our first ever reception. We had First Fridays, and we stopped that in 2019, 2020. Well, we think it's important that we do still socialize and get to socialize safely, socially distanced manner. So on October 15th, we are having an evening gathering over at the Ahern Hotel lobby, featuring our guest, Wayne Allen Root, who will be selling some of his books and signing many of his books. More information on that can be found on our website. And finally, of course, if you don't know, Judge Rhonda and Judge Kishner are on our slate of recommended candidates. I just wanted to say thank you to our two women judges who are incumbents, and hope that everyone will re-elect them. If you have any questions, please go to our website at www.nevadarepublicanclub.com. And thank you everyone for being on this Zoom call. Be safe, stay healthy, take your vitamin D, and we'll see all of you on October 6th.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.